Seeing none, I'll close the public comment time for items not on the agenda and move on to our first item, which is 3 items, just as shown on the agenda, discussion items. And I'll go to Chris for staff reports on those items.
Thank you very much. And thank you all for being very flexible and allowing this meeting tonight. As I've told you guys, I believe last week, I will be unavailable on the 16th to host a meeting. So again, I appreciate you guys doing this tonight. And since we did a doodle poll and came up with tonight, some pretty heavy items have popped up that I thought I'd get in front of you tonight. But onto the discussion items. We aren't necessarily looking for any action on anything tonight. But there is a business item, the reimbursement resolution could be acted on, but I'll save that for item 5. And we could jump right into number 2, Megan, if that's okay with you. Because I'll cancel the meeting just before the 16th. And
okay.
Yeah. So the number 2 item, I left this on the agenda out of a courtesy to the board who asked for some more information, and also to Farrah Davis, who has provided an updated some updated material that I got today, this morning. So I forwarded the board some of those materials. They're not necessarily timely enough to put in the packet, but it'd be good to have those for us to readdress in a more substantive fashion in October. And I'll stop there.
Great, thank you. And this is item number 2 of the discussion items. Appreciate the update. Was there any members of the board that had any questions for Chris on this?
I could just quickly, I just got a chance to really look at it quickly. I didn't have time to dive in, but I am curious. It seems like there is a lot of budgetary stuff that's written in this updated proposal, which is great to see. If I understand correctly, there was certain things that she was saying would be basically what she would be doing work-wise in exchange for being able to live on site. And then there was additional items that would need to be paid by the district. Was I understanding that correctly?
That's what I saw as well. When I briefly looked at the budget that she had created, it seemed like a lot of the promotional work seemed to be billed at different rates. And I know that in years past, I think we've allocated about $2,500. Or anticipated that's what the park would make. And I think she came in just at under 3,000, so 2,878 or something.
Yeah, my understanding of this is that Farrah had come up, and I'll let Farrah jump in here in a second as needed if the board wishes. To kind of update where we had left off, or last month was the board asked us to get together and work out flesh out some more details of a contract and a scope of work and what's it going to cost and how's it all going to work. So there's a tremendous amount of moving parts all of a sudden that we had to really deal with, and we're still chewing away at some of these things to reframe this in its most basic sense. And there's a lot of questions that staff has received that we can dive into before moving too much further. We did meet with Farrah twice, once at the site, once at our office, and I think we still need a couple more opportunities to get together and work out some more of the details. So we're all just kind of trying to squeeze this project down into a bite-sized chunk for a bigger item.
Great.
I guess,
thank you.
Sorry, this is Dave. And just real quick. I mean, and I'm sure this is probably on a future, we talked about in a future meeting, but also, I mean, it seems like with the improvements and all of that, like you're expecting additional revenue, and I would love to see what your projected revenue for, you know, the additional site fees, et cetera, would be. And then I guess, I don't, if this is also, if Alicia's letter is part of this as well, I'd just like to say, I read that, I looked over Farrah stuff, haven't had really any time to digest it, but I appreciate all the work that both of you presented. So thank you.
Thank you, Dave. If there's no other comments or questions from board members, I'd like to move to public comment on this item. If there are members of the public who would like to raise their hand and discuss the Manila RV Park proposal update. Please raise your hand and I will call you in order. So I see Mary's iPad followed by Shelley. And I think Dendra indicated in the chat, she also would have public comment. And so we'll start with Mary. You have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yep, I can hear you.
Super. Well, I looked at the proposal that was offered by FARA, and it certainly is very exciting, but it seems to fall into 2 categories for me. One is about the campground, and the other is about increasing the community activities within the park. So first of all, I think that the campground, as it has been already imagined, did not create very much money and was a source of some work and some angst on the part of the staff. And so overall, I think that the overall benefit of the campground aspect has been shown to be not significant. But on the part of the development of the community park as a community resource, this is a very exciting idea. But I think that the proposal takes it kind of cart before the horse. I think rather than dealing with the proposal per se, I think that what the board needs to do is to consider the position of a park activities director. And once they establish that that is something that they want to do and feel it's a good thing, then they would need to write a policy and procedure and a job description, and then put that out to the public to get nominees for that position, and then choose among all the good nominees for that position to use that position, to take that position. And that's pretty much what I would like to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Shelley.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, great. So I have a couple of questions too, I guess, for Farah. Is that how you pronounce your name, Farah?
That's correct.
And if you want to go ahead and state your questions, we'll respond to all questions once the public comment
okay.
is
All
closed.
right. Thank you.
Thank
This
you.
is my first time on a Zoom meeting.
Oh, sure, no problem.
So in your proposal, Farah, you related to, or you talked about your experience with boutique and international hotel. Now, is that a business that you're currently employed by, if I may ask?
And I think we'll get all your questions and write them down and then respond as one.
Oh, okay. All right.
Thank you.
Sorry for that. And then connected with that is, if you are still part of that international regulated businesses, is it your plan to connect or promote Manila as a boutique and international hotel? Part of that group? That would be my other question. And then one question about, how does one increase an annual profit by 350%? And I'd like to know how you came up with that 350%. So those are my questions.
Great, thank you, Shelley, very much. And we will come back to those answers for you after we close the public.
Okay.
Dendra, did you want to have a comment on this item?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can, thank you.
Yep.
I originally wanted to do public input at the beginning of the meeting too, but I couldn't do it. So I hope at some point I can. But on this item, I just forgot what I was going to say. Shoot. I'm sorry. You'll have to come back to me. I just went brain dead. Sorry.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, why don't we, so what I'm gonna do is there was a few questions that Shelley put forward to Farah. I think those can be answered by Farah. We'll go back to Shelley to see if that addresses concerns or anything else. Any other questions arise, and then I'll come back to you, Dendra.
Okay, thank you.
Public comment. You're welcome. So Farah, let me know if you got the questions or you want me to restate.
Oh, awesome, Shelley. Thank you for your question. So in regards to the international businesses, I am no longer affiliated. I have no existing international businesses, although I do have access to that community and a lot of networking over the past 15 years. So my goal is to change the market type so that it's not maybe people that are in their vehicles out of necessity, but we're kind of focusing more on these digital nomads, retirees, and international travelers that will actually put money into the community. So I specifically know how to market with those, and I'm well connected with those communities. So yeah, that answers your second question a little bit. And is it my plan to advertise as a boutique? And I don't know if boutique is the right word, but we are looking at like a different class. Like I really want to fix the aesthetics so it looks a little bit bougie. And then as far as how I would come up with that 350% increase, I mean, I saw like what the revenue was like 2,000 per year with some additional sites. And I mean, and just also going into a little bit of what Alicia's letter was addressing, there are some infrastructural changes such as Wi-Fi, additional sites. We do have fire pits. I was just planning on repurposing those. You can spray them with Rust-Oleum. They look to be in good condition. Also, I did have bathrooms for farther down the road, but those are a big investment up front. So I felt like there should just be a smaller investment so that we can actually prove to the community and the board that it is worth further investment to create bathrooms. And with that, the price continuously will go up. But I think with Wi-Fi and then eventually adding full hookups, that we can easily get within a $45 to $50 range. And then once showers are there, even higher.
Great, thank you, Farah. Appreciate that. Does that address your question, Shelley? Or did you have anything further?
Somewhat. It's somewhat. I'd have to ponder it for a while because I think I have more questions that have to do with that,
Okay.
with the RV park.
Sure, and let's even if we two things. Even when we close public comment, feel free to please email Christopher and the CSD, and we can take comments anytime through phone call or email. Also, this item will be coming back before the board. No decisions will be made tonight, so you will have another opportunity to discuss the project or the idea further in upcoming meetings. Dendra, go to you and see if your ideas came back.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
They came back and then
So they lost again?
they lost again. I'm
okay.
sorry.
No, that's okay.
Something she said.
Okay.
I don't know if it was about the bathrooms, but that grant, the park grant could include a bathroom and a shower over there, like a unisex bathroom and one, maybe even an outside shower with a thing around it with the on pay, which we have talked about for many, many years there. And also, I did not get any of this other information the board's talked about. And I went over to the district and picked up the board packet. So I did not get the letter from Alicia or any of this other stuff in the board packet that people are referring to. And so I don't understand that.
Okay.
And also, I had some public input at the beginning of the meeting, but I couldn't. My phone keeps changing how this does it. So,
okay. Well, we're going to get through, let me get through the discussion items. This is the second of 3. And then before we move on to the business items, I will open it for public comment not on the agenda.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. And with that, I'm going to close the public comment on the RV park discussion. Was there any further discussion by board members or feedback you'd like to provide, Chris, for preparation of bringing something forward in a future meeting?
I think, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I wanted to say thank you both to you, Chris, and to you, Farah, for so promptly getting more information to us. I think that's excellent that we have more numbers to look at and stuff to ponder on this whole thing. And it's, yeah, it's exciting to just keep pushing forward, and also good to hear community members' concerns and see how we can navigate those. So thank you, guys.
Yeah, I have a list of questions brewing already that I've received. So if anybody wants to send more questions just to the district email, I can get all those in one bucket and address them all at once.
And then if I could just quickly, Mary's comment reminded me that in our visioning process that was done maybe like 5 years ago, the number one thing that came out of the wishes and interests of the public was maybe to reestablish like a Parks and Rec Commission, which was like a group of volunteers who worked with the district. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Great, thank you. Any other board members have a comment on this? I had, before the meeting, I had sent Chris a number of comments. I think some of them we heard are questions to bring back, and I think some of them we heard this evening. For example, you know, is the proposal to become an employee, or would it evolve into an employee? If it's a contractor situation, what are the limits of what the board can approve versus what would have to go out to a formal request for proposals? And what would the ultimately the process look like? Other questions I had were concerning, you know, with the cost breakdown that was provided. I do think it is a good start to give us an idea of costs associated with hiring a contractor for, say, branding and marketing. But there are items on that list that have annual costs that would need to be kept up after the initial investment with the contractor. And so really, truly, are we able to get at what is the true cost to the district? For example, you know, brand creation. There's initially you could create a brand, but then you have to hire the artist to do the logo, for example. So just in that, with, you know, those costs outside of what the cost for the contractor would be don't seem clear to me in this proposal. I think we need to understand what the full cost would look like to the CSD. And then also, based on then these costs to the district, how much do we have to fund this, and based on our current budgeting and outlook, and what would that look like over time to truly be able to participate in this, whether it's a new position or a contract. And then just the, you know, liabilities associated for, you know, with the holding events for the CSD. And so that could be a little more clear. Also. So those are a few things that I thought of. If I have other questions, I'll be timely in submitting them before this item comes to the board again, but I wanted to be transparent on some of the questions I had on this. So with that said, I think if there's no further comment from the board, we can move on to discussion item number 3.
Thank you very much.
The grant status. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, it popped up on my screen. I hope everybody could see it, but my screen is covered with people's faces. We were just awarded $2.5 million for our drainage grant. So in reverse order, that's on the agenda there, last being drainage. And thank you very much to Brett Vivian for some stellar work for our community and the district that we get to move forward with this project. And it's very exciting. There'll be some more information soon, I'm sure, coming, and we're going to go out to bid for some of the items, and there'll be more board action required, I'm sure. But we're very excited that that grant was fully funded by CNRA. So great work for everybody supporting us in doing that. We also are believing we're very close to being, our $3.5 million water grant is going to be funded. And that's some other items on the agenda tonight to help support that. That requires a 10% match, which requires me to have the lovely residents of Manila go into $350,000 worth of debt. That's the cost of the entire water system in 1965, but we're looking at a 40-year interest-free loan which so happens to amount to $2 per ratepayer per month, which is exactly the amount that we collect already and have been for a decade in CIP deposits. So we're very well positioned to handle that debt. And we'll talk again about that a little bit more in one of the agenda items. The wastewater grant looks like it's positioned to be funded as well. I'm going to save my breath on that one until it actually is, but circling a little bit into the middle here, the park per capita grant is a guaranteed $178,000 that we have, and that is due in December. The SPP grant, which is way more than that, hasn't been awarded yet, and we're not sure who's being awarded. There's no list produced yet. So I've gotten a hold of our grant manager on that and asked what the deal is with that, because we don't want to start pulling items directly off of that list and throwing them at another funding source just yet. But as December gets closer, we're going to have to put a list of projects together. And I think all the things we're talking about this evening are very timely for that. So if anybody has any questions on these grants, I'm sure Brett and I would be more than happy to jump in there and see if we can answer them.
Great, thank you, Chris. Well, that's exciting to get some money for the district. Are there any board members who have any questions or comments regarding this discussion item? Go ahead, Dave.
Just real quick, I mean, could you give a bit of, I'm again, obviously relatively new. It seems like there are a lot of people here that might not know much about the grant. You kind of give the 40,000 foot view, just what exactly it's going towards, quickly.
The one that we were just awarded, the drainage grant.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, the flood protection grant. I can give you a 40,000 foot view, and I think Brett will jump in here for the 40 meter view. Basically, the entire community had a hodgepodge of drainage systems. The district had a little bit here and there. The county was responsible for this and that. Caltrans had some. Then we had a railroad blowing through the middle of our town. There was a lot of private systems. A lot of it didn't work. The district was never funded to do any of the work, and nobody really kept up on it, except many years ago. There's a lot of volunteers and guys with their backhoes digging out trenches and things like that. And we decided, Brett in particular was very instrumental in helping us gather all of this together and get all the partners together, including Caltrans and the county and residents to put one program together that made sense for everybody that we can tackle. And we tried to go for funding in a different stream that didn't pan out, and he went for CNRA, and they bought it, and here we are with it. I'll pause here and I'll let Brett give us a little better view of that.
Yeah, I would just add that, a number of the projects, so I mean, as Chris said, there's kind of a handful of projects around and nobody's really sure who maintains or works with them, and they've kind of lapsed, and then the big thing was focusing on some of the projects that were mentioned in the 1988 storm drain master plan. A lot of those projects hadn't been implemented yet, just because of lack of funding. And then, we really saw this as an opportunity, as connecting resources with the county, with the CSD, with the North Coast Rail Authority, to kind of have one system that is distributed throughout the community. So really just replacing culverts, putting in vegetated swales, doing a rain garden and vegetated swale over at the community center, where that courtyard floods pretty bad. So just kind of restoring things that, just kind of fell off the charts. And yeah, mainly kind of culverts, vegetated swales, that sort of thing.
Great, thank you.
Thanks. Great work. Congratulations.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments for Chris or Brett on this discussion item? All right. Oh, Danielle, did you have something? No? Okay.
I just wanted to, are the two grants from the water board, are those piggybacked in any way? Do they, if we get one, does it secure the other, or do they, or is it two fully separate projects?
Those are two fully separate projects.
Yeah, I would just add, so the water board, we've done the planning grants. So it was through the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, DWSRF. That was for the water system, which proposed, and we did a planning study. So all the permitting and design, so shovel-ready projects, as we like to call them, were developed in that under the planning grant. And so then next step is construction. That's the one that involves a match for it. And it includes, just briefly, like a new water tank, pumping facilities, replacement of pipes, valves, various things kind of throughout the water system, like your whole kind of capital improvement sort of plant program projects. And then the wastewater project is through the Clean Water State Revolving Fund. Same scenario, the district was awarded a planning grant. We have, a shovel-ready project that largely focuses on kind of rehabilitating or kind of reconfiguring some of the pumping systems, replacing pumps in the septic tanks that are around, and raising lids kind of so that we don't have water flowing into them. Just kind of like it's a hodgepodge of just all the things that kind of need to be done. And then that one is $3.5 million and no match, but the state is going through their environmental process, but that's looking promising. So
Thanks for clarifying that for me.
And at some point I'll work with Chris. We should give I think we gave a presentation on the wastewater a while ago, but new board members, we can kind of give presentation on at least these three and other grants that we're going for, as far as what are the components that it involves.
Great. A presentation would be great. Are there any other board members who'd like to comment or question on this discussion item? If not, I'd like to open the public comment, and public comment specifically regarding discussion item 3 for grant status update. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise your hand. Dendra, I saw in the chat. Nancy, thank you. I see you as well. So I'll start with Dendra until 3 minutes, and we'll go to you, Nancy.
Okay, I had a question that I talked to Chris earlier about today. There is no blow off over at the dead end line by the district general manager's house. And this was the whole thing about an FPPC semi-violation thing. But my house is the last house on this dead end. So I get, when they flush the lines or do anything, all the garbage in the water comes to my house because there is no blow off valve, and there's supposed to be a blow off valve at the end of the line. And because his house is right there, it's a conflict of interest. So I would like the board somehow to look into this with the FPPC to see how this can be rectified, because I don't feel like my household should be getting all the garbage from this whole line. And I've opened my faucet thing and dumped out the crap that comes through it. And, there's 3 other households, well, triplex and another household and Chris's household that are past the end of that, where there's no blow off valve. And so that needs to be rectified somehow. Whether the board has to go to the FPPC and ask them how to do it or what. This has been an issue since, 2003 for me. There should be a blow off legally at the end of every line where there's a dead end line, because all this biofilm, and if you research it and take any training in water and sewer and look at what builds up in the lines, it would just disgust you. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you, Dendra.
You're welcome.
Next, we'll go to Nancy.
Well, I just had a couple, two different kind of things. I was really interested in what a vegetative swale is and where they were going to be located, you know, exactly a description of them. And then just because I've taken lots of classes or group meetings about sea level rise, I just, and it's going to impact Manila. I wondered if in this whole in the grant process, whether that was taken into consideration.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Are there any more public comments on discussion item number 3 with the grant status update? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment and go back to Chris and perhaps Brett to address Nancy's questions.
Yeah, and I can address both. So I guess starting with Denver's comment, the valve cluster in the location that she's referring to is a part of the project, and that blow off, there will be a blow off installed there. So it's not an FPPC issue because it's community wide project. So you know the general manager wasn't dictating what happens there or anything. So that is addressed, and Dender, I'd be happy to share the plans with you to show you those components. And then for the drainage project and Nancy's comments, thanks. Those are excellent questions. So a drainage, a vegetated swale, it's just an earthen, you know, some people might refer to it as a ditch or kind of like a artificial creek bed, but it's an excavated kind of linear landform that you've put that we would plant native plants to the coast in, but just a way to convey water from one place to another. If that makes sense. And you know, maybe I can point to some examples, and when we give a presentation, I'll certainly show some examples of a vegetated swale. And then with sea level rise, also an excellent question that was specifically addressed in the grant application. So you know, we've got to kind of balance the, you know, so with sea level rise, the rising groundwater table, and how that affects vegetative communities, as well as kind of the transfer of drainage and water out to different locations. You know, we've kind of need to consider that. Right now, it's really just at the very conceptual point, you know, using those projects from the storm drain master plan and kind of general stuff. We had HSU students involved. So we're at very much concept right now, and then we'll be developing that more to accommodate or, you know, design with, you know, projected sea levels and rainfall events, all the hydrology and hydraulics.
Thank you, Brett. That was very informative. I appreciate answering those questions. That was great. Was there any board members have any further questions or discussion on this item? For Brett or Chris? Otherwise, I will say thank you both very much for all your hard work. I appreciate it. And we look forward to more information coming in the future regarding grants that we are involved with, or going to be involved with. With that, I'll move on in the agenda, and it looks, so now we're going to go to business items. It looks like we will go to business item number 4, and that is regarding the resolution for the single payer healthcare. And Chris, we'll go to you with the
Thank you. Yes, briefly, I did hear back. So a little update to the packet where I said I did not hear from our attorney. I did. I sent him a brief message. I didn't want to bury him too much, but just asking what his thoughts were on this resolution. And he said, generally speaking, our board can make any proclamations they wish to make. So there's nothing neither here nor there with that. So you're free to adopt this as it's been written.
Okay, thank you. That sounds good. So you're looking for us to take action on this resolution, it sounds like.
Yeah, there was one letter of support that we received, and I included it last month, and I think I accidentally omitted it this month.
Okay. Yep, I recall that letter. Did any members of the board have any questions or comment questions, I guess, regarding the resolution for Chris? Seeing none, I'll move to public comment. Are there any members of the public who would like time to comment on the single taxpayer resolution to where the board would show ultimately show support of something like that moving forward?
Looks like Nancy has her hand up.
Okay, great. Go ahead, Nancy. Thank you.
I don't want to add too much, but I do want to comment. Willow Creek passed this resolution, but prior to doing that, they figured out what their savings were in terms of insurance for their employees. And I checked what that was, and it was $60,000 a year in savings if there were a single payer system. So, so I thought that would be good to share. And also, I also looked about for surveys in California, specifically for people in favor of single payer. And this was in the New Republic, and it said 2 surveys showed 65 to 70% of people were in favor of it. So that's all. Oh, and the district also passed a resolution in the past supporting a previous bill. That's it.
Great. Thank you, Nancy. I appreciate your comments. Were there any other members of the public who would like to comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment and return it back to the board for discussion or a motion.
I would like to move to adopt the resolution in support of single payer healthcare.
I would second that.
Thank you, Sequoia. Thank you, Danielle. That sounds good. And all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed say nay. And I think that we have a unanimous support of, for this resolution, Chris. And with that, we'll move on to business items 5 and 6, which are on the same, or they're separate agenda items, but the discussions, the summary involves both items 5 and 6. And we'll go to Chris to further discuss those items.
Thank you very much. This item number 5, the reimbursement resolution, as well as the debt management item. I'll start with the reimbursement resolution. Basically, what that is saying is when and if we get approved for this grant, which I think we are, we're going to need to spend some of our own funds to pay contractors to start building this. And this resolution says that we're going to ask the state to pay us back. We've been through this process quite a bit in the past, so we're well aware of it, but this resolution is required. I have a couple of questions that I'd like to ask the state for some clarification on what appears to be some grammatical ambiguity in it, but I'm sure we'll get that resolved. So tonight we don't necessarily have to pass this, but if anybody wanted to move and support this as it's been presented, that'll at least take it off of the agenda for next month. The next item, we can discuss both these at the same time if you wanted. The next item is a piece of policy that we do not have, and we must have this policy in order to go into debt. And I sought out some other agencies, local agencies, and they did not have any policies as a sample. So I've had I found it and just rewrote it for our use. This is going to have to be first read at our October meeting based on our internal policy on creating new policy. So we definitely don't have any action on that this evening. So if there's any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you. Were there any questions from board members? Oh, go ahead, John.
I have a if we're reading it into the record, is that the final draft of the resolution, or would there still be room to make modifications after it gets read into the 2 meetings and then voted on?
The resolution would be adopted as is if that was approved this evening, because the state's pretty strict on their language and they don't let me make any amendments to it. And that's why I did have a small correction with them. The policy, though, does require 2 readings, and that wouldn't be read into the record. It would be beginning in October and then adopted in November.
And then, so I guess by read into the record, is there an opportunity then in October or November to make any changes to the policy?
Certainly, yes. If we adopted either one of these, we could, I could seek an amendment for item 5, and we can absolutely put an amendment for item 6. What would be the, if the state shot any of these back saying either one of those being amended would be unacceptable, at that point, I'd bring it back to the board and try to amend it to fit their needs. But as introduced this evening, just to take a bite out of these tonight to get us prepared for a final adoption, they're written specifically for the state's use.
Great. Thanks for the clarification. And on the resolution, the clarification you're seeking, should it be clarified for the next meeting, that would show up in the resolution.
That's correct. And
I
with
just
that,
wanted to make sure we were transparent about that.
yeah, one thing or two things. One, Dendra has her hand up and she's having a problem. She'd like to comment. But the question in the reimbursement resolution, it says something like the district seeks to reimburse, and I thought it should say seeks to be reimbursed. So it sounded a little bit of a wrong way street for us there, but I'll get clarification on that.
Okay.
So we don't really need any action on either one of these tonight, but Dendra did have her hand up, I'm seeing.
Okay, great. If there's no other questions right now for Christopher, Dave, do you have a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, just quickly, I mean, I guess I read through these. I'm not really, not a lawyer, blah, blah, blah. But I guess it would be good for me to, at least look over these. And if we don't have to, I mean, I would like to and get a little bit more clarification, but it could totally be offline. And, once I've maybe had a chance to dig in more. So if we don't have to do anything, I would probably advocate, if we can kind of take care of it all next month, I would definitely like some more time. And I guess my other question is, I'm assuming our lawyers have looked over these as well.
I would send both of these past our attorney once the board adopts these, and make sure if something came back that was a problem, but these are basically pre-vetted.
Great, thanks. Danielle?
Well, the third paragraph where it says may fund the projects with the proceeds from the sale of obligations. What's the sale of obligations? And let's see, I think the third is section 3. Well, I just want to make sure the reasonably expected maximum principal amount of the funds is $3.5 million. Is this reimbursement resolution for that balance, or is this specifically for the 350,000?
It would actually be 3.5 million minus 350,000 would be what we're going to be reimbursed. And the obligations are the state's end of them selling bonds to fund these, and I believe most of that's already transpired. I had the same question of why would we be reimbursed $3.5 million, but that is over the course of the entire project, minus 350,000 that it would include 350,000, but we're going to be paying that back as a debt service. I hope that helped.
Yeah. And then in that section 3 at the bottom of the first page, the resolution is being adopted no later than 60 days after the date which the agency will expend monies for the portion. So does that mean we have to adopt this 60 days prior to any scope of work or any reimbursement? Is that?
Essentially, this resolution is super early. We would have to have this adopted within the 60 days of asking for a reimbursement from them. So we're way ahead of the curve with this.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. I'd like to open the public comment period and go to Dendra.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. My first question is where did the debt management policy come from? From CSDA or somewhere else?
This is from CSDA, yes.
Okay. Then my second question is, from what you were just saying to Danielle, is this going to be similar to the Davis-Grunsky Act, where we were paying back for a loan and which the property owners paid for it in their taxes, or is this going to come from ratepayers?
That's a great question because we haven't been asked to produce the instrument for debt service yet. I think when that comes around, I'm going to lobby that we use our existing capital improvement plan because this is a giant capital improvement investment and it seems like it fits in that financial way and methodology to me, but I think we're not quite there yet. If we're required to do an assessment, it will be a property tax issue. So it is similar to Davis-Grunski in that regard. A big difference is that there's no interest, so it's very easy to calculate and spread out over 40 years. And I'm assuming it is still a 40-year interest-free loan. If any of that changes, it would be a very big decision we'd want to carefully look at. And I'll have more information before we go into any debt with that.
Okay, my other thing that I want to point out is that in paragraph 4, you state that at the end, the last sentence, the district currently has over 14,000 in debt service reserves from a previously retired loan. That's a Davis-Grunski loan, and that cannot be used. It's illegal to use that money for anything else. So somehow that has to come back to the property owners as to what they want done with that money. Do they want $3.50 refunded to them or whatever it is? Or do, you know, I can calculate it out, but you know, what the property owners who paid that money, which they shouldn't have paid for that loan. So that's another question for the board. And I'd like somebody in the board to, either the board secretary or the board president, to take notes that that needs to come back.
Thank you, Deidre. Did you have any further comments on this item?
No, that's pretty much it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do appreciate your comments, and so we'll close public comment at this time and bring it back to the board for discussion. Well, one, if you have any other questions or clarifications on this item after hearing the public comment, and two, indicating providing feedback on if we want to move forward on either of these tonight or have them come back at the future meeting in October, as Chris had suggested. I think that'd be good feedback for him. I'll jump in there with seeing nothing from anybody else. Hearing you know, with the public comment and maybe hearing that there's some additional information that could be provided regarding the debt management policy, and with Dave's comments earlier, I would suggest we hold off on taking action on these items today and have them come back for us at the October meeting for decision.
Megan, I agree with you in that case, and Dave as well. I am confused about the $14,000 public comment though, because I just want to clarify with Chris, as we repay that to ourselves, we're holding that to be used in a way that property tax payers are going to decide what to do with that. Is that what the plan is?
This is a somewhat of a complicated issue, and I'll be brief with this. We have over collected for the loan when Joe Mellett was working at the Treasury office, the tax collector's office, and him and I worked out how to reduce the amount we were charging towards the retirement of our Davis-Grunski loan. So essentially what we did was overcharged all the property owners who were paying this tax on their on the roll by about 14 or maybe 13,500 or so, and it's since collected interest. When I've asked our former auditor about it, he said it would cost more than $14,000 to figure out how to refund it. So it's sat in this account and it's sitting there at the county right now collecting interest. And a little bit of an update, our auditor did come up, our new auditor, Don Cole, and he asked about this too, and I told him what it was. So he should be giving us an opinion on it. And him and a brief attorney opinion on it, I think would be enough for us to decide whether we want to figure out how to refund this back to the people who actually paid it, or just apply it to a very similar investment for which it was collected in the first place. So I think there's still some valid questions that should be answered on this, but that's basically where that money came from.
Okay, thank you for that. And then the debt management policy also references the reserve policy, and I've never seen that. So I was wondering if you could email that to me or to the board. That would be helpful.
Very well.
Thank you.
What? This is being tape recorded.
You had mentioned that the kind of repayment mechanism has not been determined yet. Will that be something that comes back up to the board at the time when it's closer and to figure out the details?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll definitely bring that back to the board. I'm not sure what that's going to look like yet.
Okay, yeah, that's great. I just for clarity that there is a future opportunity to comment on whatever that might look like when we land on it in the future. So thank you for that. So I guess if there are no other questions, I'm not sure if someone wants to make a motion to essentially continue this item to October and ask that staff bring back a resolution and a policy for the board to take action on.
I'll make a motion to continue items 5 and 6. Is that right? Until next month, and at which point the board will take action. Is that good enough?
Yeah, I think that works. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Danielle. So we'll just take a vote on it. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed say nay. Thank you. So we will continue that and look forward to seeing it on our agenda for next month. As I said before, we got through items 5 and 6. I did want to, I will kind of circle back to public comment for items that are not on the agenda to provide Dendra the opportunity to speak on items not on the agenda, as her phone wasn't working to raise her hand earlier in the meeting. So Dendra, I'll go to you for that, and you have 3 minutes.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, because I still can't raise my hand. So first of all, at the last board meeting, the board president closed the meeting at 8:30 without asking if any member wanted to continue the meetings. Directors can request 15 minutes or 30 minutes until certain reports are received. That's just a suggestion. Then I have another suggestion that the board secretary and president keep track of items to come back and when, like a tickler calendar. And 3, at the last meeting, I stated that in the past, the park was supported by field rentals up to $10,000 and RV and tent campsites rentals, $8,000 plus more. And it needed more marketing and fundraising, not property taxes. And then the GM manager refuted this, and the board president would not allow me to explain because I had already given my input. So this was prior to his being hired in 2008. That's the way it always was. No property taxes went to the park, and it was self-sufficient. And in 2008, they laid off the community center coordinator and recreation staff who helped assist with the fundraising. And then my 4th thing is that with the staff reduction, I am concerned that there's no succession policy and operation and maintenance plans. And 5, there's been no operation and maintenance report for several months. And 6, for the board president, if I have a question about an item that I'd like clarified, and then later have a comment before the board action, how does that happen? So that I am not told I can't comment. If I have a question about an item, like, a specific question, like, how does this work or what does this mean? And then later I will make a comment before the board, passes it. How do I do that? And then I have specific questions about an item on the check disbursements. So I hope you don't close the meeting before then.
Thank you, Deirdre. Do you have any other comments for items not on the agenda?
No, except what I discussed with Chris today about the website. I'd ask him if he talked to CSDA about their website, and he kind of had reservations about it, but it is not, the website is not up to the requirements are supposed to be, and the district could be sued. I mean, I could sue the district because I have cataracts and I can't read that stuff that's on the website, and there's supposed to be ways to allow you to do that. And or anybody with a disability, it's supposed to be searchable. There's supposed to be information on it that's not on it. And so I'm making that suggestion for a future board meeting agenda item.
All right, great. Thank you. I appreciate your comments. Going to close the public comment period for items not on the agenda and move on to the consent calendar. The consent calendar has agenda items of 7, 8, and 9. I'm going to read the title of each item. Typically, consent calendar items can be approved in one motion unless there's a board member, a member of the public who would like to have a hearing or an item be heard on the consent calendar. So if, as I read off the subject for items 7, 8, and 9, if you would like to have the items pulled for further discussion, please raise your hand. Then board members can just let me know by speaking up. Agenda item number 7 is approve awards of surplus property to next responsible bidders. Are there any board members or public members want to hear this? Seeing one, we'll pull that off the consent. I think Dendra indicated in her last comment, the check disbursements, she had a comment on that. So we'll also pull that off consent. And approve the draft minutes for August 19th, 2021. Is there anyone who wants to pull that for a separate discussion? Seeing none, I think we can leave the approved draft minutes of August 19th, 2021 on the consent calendar. So with that, excuse me, did you have comments on the draft minutes? Dendra?
No.
Okay, thank you very much. So with that, if a board member would like to make a motion to approve number 9 on the consent calendar, we can take care of the minutes and then circle back to item 7.
I'll make a motion to approve the August meeting minutes, August 19th.
I'll second that motion.
Great. Thank you very much. And with that, we can item number 9 will be approved on consent without further discussion, and we'll go back to item number 7 regarding approving awards of surplus property to next responsible bidders. And I'll go to Chris for a discussion on that item.
Yes, this item was from August. What had happened was the board approved surplus property that we had advertised, and somebody bid pretty high on every item. And then it took about 2 or 3 weeks of trying to get a hold of him, where he ignored me, and I think he abandoned his bid. So we went to the next responsible bidders, who actually came in, and at least Vern did, and paid for his, and John retraded. I think somebody might have a specific question about this item.
Yeah, I guess I'm just wondering when it the approve awards, did we put the cart before the horse? I mean, were we supposed to approve that those were the awarded parties and give them their, before the exchange happened? And then also the $200 for the tractor and mower that was paid for in a trade for mowing. I'm just wondering because I've seen, payments for like $999 for mowing. So if we can get someone who will do it for $200, I just like, those are the two things that got brought up in this agenda item.
Yeah, we did declare certain property surplus, and then I brought a list of these. We opened up a sealed bid process at another meeting. I don't know if you might have been absent, but we did award them to somebody else through a regular sealed bid process. And the person who was awarded those is the one who failed. So that was that end of it. The other part of it, yeah, I agree. We've paid upwards of $900 to have the park mowed. And when the guy was struggling to make his payment to us, he'd asked if he could just mow the park. And I said, it sounds pretty reasonable to me. So that's how we worked that. And I'm glad you concur with that. Did that answer your question about the awarding of the property to somebody else?
Yeah. If the initial bid was already approved by the board at the June meeting, I guess is probably the last one, the one I missed. So I think that would be it, although it does bring up, a question for me of if we can find a more, a cost-effective way to mow for $200 instead of $999 might be something we need to look at.
Yes.
Thank you, Danielle. Was there anyone else who had any questions for Chris on this item regarding the surplus property? Seeing none, I'll ask if there's any public comment on the award of the surplus property to the next responsible bidder. Seeing none, I'll close the public comment and bring it back to the board for discussion or a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, sure, go ahead.
To approve the approve award of surplus property to the next responsible bidder.
Second.
Great, thank you. With a motion and a second, we'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to item number 8, which is received check disbursements as of August 18th, 2021. And Chris, go to you for a discussion on this item.
Yeah, this is a list of checks that we have paid out. And I think Dendra had a question about these, so it was pulled off the consent. Generally, a little background for everybody. Deposit refunds at $62, that's when somebody moves out and they get their $150 back minus a water or sewer bill, and that's usually what that is. CBS leasing is our lovely copier that's outrageously expensive in my opinion, and it's very difficult to get out of that lease. If you've ever leased an expensive car, this thing's pretty weird. I'm going to jump right to the McMaster car one. That might be what's popping up. I bought a bunch of parts to replace the stalls in the girls' bathroom at the community center, and that's what those were for. The Redwood Teen Challenge trash removal at the park is leftover stuff from when our caretaker moved out and left a bunch of stuff actually strewn on the property line that went back into private property that we don't own. So we had them when we had an opportunity to jump on having them bring a big trailer out and a bunch of guys, and they got rid of it pretty quick, and that was nice. I think that I would need somebody to ask me a specific question for any further detail.
All right, that sounds great. Yeah, we'll open this to public comment, seeing that a member of the public did have comments or questions, and go to you, Dendra, first.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, my question is about the Eureka Oxygen Company, which is the MCC fire system. I'm assuming that's for the kitchen. Is that correct, Chris?
I'm going to assume that you're correct.
All right. So the last time this came up, it was the kitchen and all the fire extinguishers for the school. And I questioned that. And you stated at the next meeting in your general manager's report that it was a public generally usage. So, but my feeling is that this is ongoing maintenance, which under RCM's lease, Redwood Coast Montessori's lease, they're responsible for. And last year, that $750, they grouped it, anything over $500, for a repair the district's supposed to take on. This was not a repair. This was ongoing maintenance. And last year, the district paid $750 for their fire extinguishers to get recharged and checked. Plus, that is for the kitchen, the hood thing that has to get recharged every year. So there's lease specifically states that repairs over $500 that the district needs to pay for. And since last year, the general managers, nobody's used that kitchen. The school's the only one that uses the kitchen. That's their responsibility under their lease to pay for that. And last year, the general manager said that it was a public general usage, but there's been no public general usage for almost 2 budget years. There's been no hall rentals, no kitchen rentals, and RCM uses the whole site, and the public generally has not. And so the board needs to look at the actuals for the kitchen and the main hall rentals. And
so Dendra, when we do the extinguishers, it's not just the school, it's the entire district's extinguishers.
well,
About
the entire
5 of them
district's-
are the school, but it's about 15 extinguishers. So it is safety, it's not just the school. And as far as the kitchen and the hood, it is a safety. It's not just the stove, it's the fire suppression system. And there has been use of the kitchen by the district. I held coffee with a cop and we used the kitchen. I did the retirement party there and used the kitchen. So we do use it, not necessarily renting it out, but we do use the kitchen.
then it should be on a percentage basis, because 99.9% of the time, the school is using it. And in the past, the district never paid for anybody's fire extinguishers there at the community center. Everybody had to do theirs. I rented as Manila preschool for I don't know how many years there. I was a center director and teacher, and the district never paid for our fire extinguishers or our fire alarms or anything else. They never paid for the propane. They never paid for, we did electrical upgrades. We did all kinds of upgrades there, and none of that was reimbursed. And we did not pay dirt cheap rent like what's being paid now. So I have a real issue with that.
But Dendra, I
And
think
I'm
you have
sorry
your
that-
public comments, and it has been more than 3 minutes. So I think we need to move on from that and see if there are other members of the public who would like to comment on this item. If there are none, I would like to close the public comment and bring it back to staff to see if there are other clarifications or items that need to be addressed further from the public comment.
Briefly, just on Dendra's comment, though, I think that it might behoove me to clarify some of the stuff with the lease and with Brian, and we'll see what we can do to make sure that this doesn't come up again, because I think I did report last year, the year before, there's some, we've got a tremendous amount of fire extinguishers, so I could see how this can get a little bit out of hand. So I'll clarify that hopefully by the next meeting, and I'll try to remind myself to do that. And I apologize for any confusion there. Yeah,
Great.
that's it for that.
Thank you. Is there any other board members who have any questions or discussion regarding the announcements for August 18th? Go ahead, Danielle.
I just, if it's more than $500 for repairs of an item in the community center, would the $297.09 in the girls' bathroom fall under that and fall onto the Montessori schools repair fund?
I think that you could cumulatively add these together and exceed the $500, but I did that project basically as a capital investment because the Brian obtained all of these partitions for the bathrooms for free from some other facility, and I told him I'd install them. So spending a couple $100 for those, I thought was a pretty good investment for the site itself. That was a brick and mortar type thing, but I think you're onto something with that. Yeah.
Just wondering if it, per expenditure, if it needs to be over 500 or just collectively, then we start doing that. So thank you for clarifying that.
Sorry. Was there any other discussion or from board members on this item? Did you need a motion from us on this? The item says to receive the check disbursements.
I motion that we receive the check disbursements as of August 18th, 2021.
Great, thank you. Great, thanks. We have a motion from Dave and a second from John. Any further discussion on the motion? We'll go ahead and take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 And all those opposed say nay. Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. So with that, we're through the consent calendar. I think. Yeah, sorry, let me go back to my beginning of the agenda. And so with that, I think that the next two items are reports, then we'll go to Chris for the report.
Thank you very much. My report is from last month, so it's a little bit old. And some of these are outdated and I'll blow through them relatively quickly. I did take a tour of the Nordic Aqua Farm site and they were going to open up to the public, but they had to kill that pretty quick. We've talked a bit about the remodeling of one of the restrooms. I think all of our Form 700s have been relatively clarified. The state or the county, by the way, is moving to an electronic Form 700 thing, so we won't have to do all these gymnastics in the future, I hope. We did allow this open air market a while back, and I think the guy sold one shirt and it died pretty quick, and that was a failure. There's up to four fiber optic lines, by the way, coming up the peninsula. One is going from Singapore to Arcata to the old Do It Best. We were trying to get the guys to let us have a manhole and tap into that at some point and maybe have district supplied broadband for a cheaper cost. He said it's not suitable at the level that it's being delivered, but we're not going to give up on that just yet. But they're going to be cutting into the road and interrupting our commutes very quickly this whole week, and it could take a while. So be ready for that. Head towards Eureka if it helps. Let's see, the Badger meter. We are spending more and more time as we get older and older. Speaking of replacing ourselves to read meters. So we looked at this about 10 years ago. It was $8,000 to get electronic meters, which everybody else in the world uses. And we're going to see about getting a quote for some updated meters that just go right on the top of most of our existing meters to allow us to drive by and collect all the data. And it'll reduce a lot of expenses and walking in the community. But there's a lot of advantages to walking around too. It's been a long time since I went to that CSDA summit where I did witness and talk to people who have better websites than us, and I'll try to get ours up to speed a little bit better than that. Our restrooms are open and we are cleaning them. Thank you for staff for taking care of a lot of this stuff, and we're not too unimpressed with what we've been doing in the absence of our utility worker. A big one is I was appointed to the Public Financing Authority for the Samoa Peninsula. I'll report back when we actually have a real meeting. We did just circle around and group up to get each other's faces recognized in a Zoom meeting. This is not going to affect Manila yet, but what it is, it's basically redevelopment for Samoa in order to throw some money, some of the money that's going to be, they're expecting a tremendous amount of increase in taxes, and the increment there is going to be peeled off and spent on some infrastructure. I'll have more to discuss later as that grows legs. There was an encampment out in the dunes. We've communicated with one of the guys camping out there, and we're going to try to get him to dismantle his own stuff, and it's an unfortunate situation. Those things tend to get out of hand pretty quick. I don't really have an update on the other camp that's actually on private property adjacent to the bay. There's been some action there. Our 2020 audit is almost finished. Don Cole did come up and met with us. We'd never met him before, and that was exciting. He called us today to require some more information from us, and hopefully we'll get that knocked out and our books cleaned up and clarified and tightened up for 21, which is now behind us, and get both of those audits finished. The 2020 audit is required to move forward with our water grant. So I think we lit a fire under him and he started working on that a little quicker. So hopefully we'll have something for the board, as old as it is, in the next month or so. The Board of Supervisors was asking to have Caltrans relinquish 255. This is a humongous deal if they do that, because we could ask to have roundabouts put in or maybe lower the speed limit and get it out of Caltrans's grip. They're very hard to deal with, but I'm not sure how that's really going to unfold now that the fiber optic lines going in anyway. So I thought that was one of the impetuses to get that done. So that's that. The Redwood Coast Montessori is considering putting some more solar panels on the north wing now, and Dendrick came in today. We chatted a bit about this, but I don't have a lot of information to expand on that tonight. But this was something we had discussed a while back. This picture is kind of old because there already is a solar panel on the south wing. And ultimately, they would like to replace all of the propane heaters with heat pumps that are far more efficient and get rid of the old plumbing that's rusting before our eyes out there. So that's a tremendous benefit to the community center in the long haul to get that stuff out of there. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to try to answer them.
Chris, in the note about the Public Finance Authority, when you said Manila is not going to be impacted yet, is there a potential based on like new raw census information that this or, funding could like, basically, I'm just wondering about like redistricting. Is that something that this is going to be addressing?
No, I think that it'll be affecting one or the other, but I don't think it's directly connected to it. And when I said that Manila wouldn't be affected by the increment taxes, or the four-letter word is redevelopment. I asked about how are the boundaries really locked in? Is Manila could it be part of this? And he was basically saying they don't know yet, but as it stands, as designed currently, it's strictly for Samoa, because that's where they're expecting all of this, the wind turbines and all of this activity is supposed to be coming their way. And if you read into the Harbor District's board package, you'll see too, they're expecting so much activity, they're hiring new positions there. So there's a lot of momentum down there. Redistricting, I'm not really sure. I feel somewhat inept in my position that I haven't really jumped in front of that at all or talked to our supervisors about it, but it sounded like there might have been some political interest in having us just have one supervisor for the whole peninsula, which makes some sense, but there's a bunch of different thoughts on that. I think if the board had some ideas about that, now would be the time, perhaps in October at a meeting, to bring up a letter of support or not support, but I'm not sure what they're doing yet. So I'm not sure I can expand on that.
Okay, yeah, I would just think that MCSD would have, a say or some input that we would want to address, but I just didn't know like where that conversation was as far as this the newness of this public infrastructure financing district or whatever. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think briefly that Jan was on this when it was in its early stages of gathering stakeholders, and she mentioned it a few times, and I was always like, well, I had never heard of this, what's going on? And then I got a call from Mike Wilson asking me to fill out an application. I told him I would, and now I'm on it, and maybe I'll regret it. Also, I don't want to forget Dumpster Day. I won't be here for it, but next week on Tuesday and Wednesday, I believe the 14th and the 15th. Thank you very much to Alicia for rounding this up and getting some dumpsters donated so we can do some cleanup, and people, residents are encouraged to go take all their garbage to where we work, and we'll take care of it and throw it away for you. I know I'm going to bring some vacuum cleaners that I've been saving up and throw some junk away. So we encourage you to bring some garbage and tell your friends.
Great. Yes, the dumpster day is greatly appreciated. Was there any board members who had any questions or comments on the director's report? Seeing none, I'm going, or Dave, do you want to go ahead?
I was going to ask, is there like a notification of dumpster day that goes out to residents of the community? And I think maybe I'm still not on some list or something, but, and also, is there anything that should not be brought to dumpster day?
I put it out on the bills. So it went out on the water and sewer bills, and then there's flyers throughout the community. I have a Facebook neighborhood watch site for Manila, so it's on that. And then it's also on Manila Next Door. And then just the usual, toxic waste can't go in, TVs, monitors, stuff like that can't go in. But anything else. And then we've gotten 2 dumpsters donated. So when one fills up, they'll bring the second one.
Thank you.
If there are, is there any other board members who would like opportunity to speak or ask questions of staff at this point? If not, I will open the director report up to public comment and see if there's anyone in the public that would like to comment on any items in the director report.
I think Dendra is chatting with me. She wants to comment and I asked her to unmute. So I'm not sure how that is working technically here, but.
Okay, yeah, I saw that Dendra, I did see in the chat function that she had a comment too. Shelley has a comment as well. So we'll go to Shelley first and then to Dendra.
Thank you. So quick question in reference to the day that we can bring junk to you. Does that also include wheels, tires from cars, vehicles?
No.
It does not include tires, but I am working with Humboldt Waste Management Authority to try and do something with them. So it's in the works.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. And we'll go to Dendra.
Okay, electronic waste, which might include your vacuum cleaner, Chris, can go to the waste transfer station. You might want to call them and they might take it free, which saves space in the dumpster. But my question is about this infrastructure meeting, which you said is similar to redevelopment and the task force. So how is this formed and who's forming it? And, you know, our district had voted against redevelopment in the past. So, and does this have any connection with this possibly go forward to some kind of, you know, what do I want to say? Formation of a new district, a peninsula-wide district, Samoa and Manila.
Does that is that all your questions, Dendra?
Well, so far, unless some
Well, I
comment.
encourage you to ask all your questions right now, and then
Well,
staff will address them.
his comment may trigger another question.
Okay.
I can't tell.
I understand, and if it does, you know, you're of course, you know, you're welcome to submit comments to us in writing. Also,
well, that won't
after
matter. That won't matter then. Sorry.
Well, real brief, it's created by 3 supervisors. It's going to be a subcommittee or an ad hoc committee or a standing committee of the Board of Soups, and they just needed 2 members of the public, and I'm one of those. I know redevelopment was voted down years ago, and it's essentially it's still redevelopment is what it is, but it's not for our agency in particular. It's not for within our sphere of influence, perhaps why I'm on it. And I'd have to reserve the right to put vacuum cleaners in that dumpster.
Okay, that's fine. Just
did you have any other questions or comments on this item?
No, but if this is anything towards you know, if this infrastructure thing leads anything towards a peninsula-wide district, the Manila district should be, and the public should be informed as ASAP. So.
Thank you, Dendra. I appreciate your comments. And with that, I will.
Thank you for letting me make my comments.
Yes, you're welcome. With that, I will close the public comment and go back to the board and see if there's any other discussion items or questions you have this evening. Otherwise, I think that all the items on the agenda we have got through it.
I'll just update everyone with our REDAC meeting, the Redwood Region Economic Development Commission. The president, Tom Jackson, and Provost Lisa Maupin-Turner, I think, presented in regards to the $458 million California endowment to Humboldt to become a Polytechnic Institute. So that's in full swing. They submitted the final draft to the chancellor's office like last week, and about upwards, I would say, of about $388 million of that is specifically going to be towards housing. because there's just no way that they can increase enrollment with the numbers that they're suggesting, you know, without figuring out how to house them. So funnily enough, I work in housing at the university. So I do expect to see occupancy doubled, and that's, you know, with capacity, which it's not right now. It's probably about 70% full this semester. So just like really interesting programming and a new name. It's most likely going to be Cal Poly Humboldt. So that's the short version. Yeah, if anyone has any questions, you know, or interested in anything about REDAC, I encourage you to attend the meetings, or I can share with you any of the presentations that they do, you know, monthly. It's the last Monday of the month. So that's it.
Great, thank you, Danielle. Appreciate the update. Did anyone have any questions or comments for Danielle on that? All right, seeing none, I think we can adjourn this meeting. It is 7:59 p.m. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, and thank you, Meg. I really like the way you host these meetings, so appreciate
Thanks.
it.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I'll echo that. Take care.
Thank you very much. See everybody next month.